In my case, I've decided to speak about a woman I actually know and have spent some time talking with. Someone who a few people here do know as well, but I think she's very important in the LGBTQI movement, and so I would like to speak about her. Frida Smith's early years were difficult. Her family moved to a rural area south of Pocatello, Idaho, accompanied by her great-grandmother, Nazarene preacher Lydia Harriet Smith. The Nazarene Church was the early focus of Frida's early life. As Nazarenes, the Smith family avoided liquor, smoking, cards, dancing, profanity, and any near occasion of sin. The rural Idaho community members were united against sin in any form and for chastity, holiness, and a strong work ethic. They had no apparent knowledge or understanding of any alternate lifestyles. The church themes of great spiritual striving, potential thrust of the biblical drama, and sense of divine providence became a sacred calling early in Frida's life. She determined that she would either be a preacher or a poet. Sometimes I wonder if there's a difference. Following the death of Frida's great-grandmother, she left and became a member of the Salvation Army and began the process of becoming an officer. I have trouble imagining Frida as Salvation Army, but she tells me it's true. At this time, Frida realized her lesbianism. True to her upbringing, she entered into a spiritual battle, seeking to overcome her nature. She read every book in the library. Each book seemed more condemning and frightening than the one before. There was no account of a sane, healthy, gay, or lesbian person. All were criminal, insane, perverted degenerates. Frida spent long evenings on her knees praying. While God was in the prayer answering business, she found that God did not want her to change her heart. God wanted to use her passion, along with the passions of others, to change the church and the world. She ultimately came to the realization that she could no more change her orientation, that she could change her eye color or her height. She left to find others like her. And in California, Frida found the gay community and became a closet Christian. As she had once hid her identity from the church, now she hid her identity from the communities around her. Frida became active in Bobby Kennedy's 1968 presidential campaign. And unfortunately, after his assassination, she realized we can't have heroes anymore. We must all fight this battle. So taking up the banner, she decided to come out publicly as a lesbian and feminist and to work to change laws. Homosexuality was a criminal offense, as well as condemned by the church and diagnosed as a mental disease. Frida became co-chair of the California Committee for Sexual Law Reform and worked for the passage of the Consenting Adults Law. It was during this lobbying effort that she wrote her narrative poem, that some of you have heard of, Dear Dora, Dangerous Derek Diesel Dyke, which I've heard and is interesting, which she read to a group of legislators who then voted to pass the law. Early in this effort, Frida learned at the Metropolitan Community Church. Realizing that she could fulfill the calling to minister, which had never left her, Frida became active in the MCC. And matter of fact, Troy Perry and Frida were speakers at the Capitol in 1971 when the Consenting Adults Bill was introduced. The MCC leadership at the time was overwhelmingly male. So Frida went to work to encourage women to become active and to change church bylaws. At General Conference, she began to pester the leaders until they accepted the ordination of women and other issues. I don't know about anybody else who knows her, but I would not want to be the target of her pestering. Frida was elected to the Board of Elders and served as a World Church Extension Elder and Vice Moderator for the next 20 years. She was also pastor of MCC Sacramento from 1972 until she retired in 2005 to become an evangelist for the denomination and an activist to preserve the early history of the LGBTQI Christian church. In an address to the 2001 UFMCC International Conference in Scottsdale, she spoke of the early church and the history of the UFMCC. The achievement of the church in the book of Acts was accompanied by passionate theological clashes over scripture, over custom, over all of the isms, racism, sexism, classism, and over intense personal disagreements and rash actions, certainly often biting off more than they could possibly chew, facing opposition and persecution, all the while rushing headlong into history. We can know this because the book of Acts was written down. We can write our own history. While we still have voices to tell, let us tell of working, marching, fasting, praying, blending our spirituality with activism in order to change unjust laws, struggling to turn our isms into wasms, to be inclusive in every sense of the word, struggling to balance all of our theological understandings to become ecumenical in our worship. As Troy Perry was wont to say, we're going to treat you in so many different ways, you're bound to like some of them, and maybe dislike a few. We can tell our personal stories, and thank you for that introduction earlier. You can help the MCC tell the story by supporting its work through giving to this church. Some of your gifts go to work right here in Boston, and some go to work for the MCC denomination. We have a story to tell. Please help us to tell it.